Good evening and welcome to the Orange County School Board's regularly scheduled meeting this Tuesday, May 12th, 2020. Board members are attending via WebEx or telephonically, so I will do a roll call, an oral roll call. Let me begin with Member Gallo. Member Gallo?
Good evening, Chair.
Good evening. Member Lopez? All right, we'll come back to Member Lopez in a minute. Member Cobert?
Good evening, Chair.
Good evening. Member Gould?
Good evening.
Good evening. Member Gordon?
I'm here, Chair.
Thank you. Dr. Castrodental?
Hello, Chair.
Hello. Member Byrd?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Let's go back. Do we have Member Lopez with us yet? Okay. I know she will be logging back in with us in just a moment. Let's begin, as we always do, with a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'm going to call on Member Gallo for her to lead us in both. Member Gallo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tonight, I'd like to recognize a good friend of many of us. I know that Dr. Castrodental, as well as Melissa Byrd, knew her, and I believe Melissa would like to say a few words as well. But Valerie Radcliffe was a huge child advocate for Orange County Public Schools. She served on the Orange County Council of PTAs for many years. In fact, that's how I knew Valerie. She was a mother to 4 beautiful children, a wonderful wife, and a fierce, fierce advocate, as well as a foster parent to many students. So she passed away this week. And the PTA family is heartbroken. I'm heartbroken. And I just wanted to dedicate the moment of silence to her and to all of her service that she did for Orange County Public Schools. And now I think Melissa would like to say something as well.
Member Byrd?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Valerie, I met Valerie just a few short years ago, so I didn't have the same opportunity to know her as long as I know Member Gallo did. But she, in that short amount of time, I realized that she was, in fact, a fierce advocate for what kids needed and what kids deserved. So she was a valuable part of the Apopka High School PTSA and an active band mom as well. She was also very involved in the Zellwood PTA for many years, even after her kids were gone. She served on our ESC Parent Advisory Council, which we were just talking about. She was a substitute teacher. She was a foster mom. She was a very active PTA partner. She will be extremely missed by our community here. And I know that everyone that had the opportunity to get to meet her will certainly miss her. Thank you for letting me speak for a moment.
Thank you. Member Gallo, back to you.
Thank you. If we could have a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America,
to which it stands, one nation, undivided, indefensible, with liberty
And justice.
and justice for all. Sorry.
All right, thank you. Let me ask for any of our members or anyone that has joined us to please mute their mics if they're not. There is somebody new to us, I think, that has their mic on. And let me also recognize that Member Lopez has joined us and is present for the meeting. Welcome, Member Lopez.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Okay. We have our first item on the agenda is a request for approval of the rezoning for the targeted area of Chain of Lakes Middle School to Southwest Middle School. And let me begin by turning to Dr. Jenkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This information has been brought previously before the board. Started actually on April 6th to go through the entire process. And we are ready now for a final hearing of any that want to comment on the targeted rezoning. And we do have to take each one individually, Madam Chair. And then we'll need an actual motion motion and vote from the board.
All right, thank you. Is there any presentation from the staff, Dr. Jenkins,
No.
at this time? Okay, so I'll go directly to callers. Do we have any callers on the line, Ms. Emball?
We do have one caller on the line, but we're not sure which rezoning they're calling about. So
Okay.
I'll ask our phone staff to ask the caller
Thank you.
which item they're calling about, and then we can go from there.
Thank you. Ms. Emball, we could always just allow the caller to speak now on whichever one it is, and then take it into consideration at the correct time. Maybe that would require opening all of them at the same time. Your call on that?
We're just going to go ahead and put the caller through so we can figure out which one they're about.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Michael on the line. Hello.
Hello, and welcome to the Orange County School Board meeting. Can you give me your name and address?
Yes, it is Michael Swickard, and my address is 1774 Morning Sky Drive, Winter Garden, Florida, 34787.
And Mr. Swickard, which rezonings are you calling about?
I am calling about the targeted rezoning for Whispering Oak Elementary.
All right. Ms. Emball, can we take those comments at this time?
Yes.
Sir, if you go forward, you have 3 minutes. Thank you for calling.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to let you know, I was the gentleman who called last meeting about against the targeted rezoning. I was able to speak to Member Gould this morning and had a very good conversation about that. So I just wanted to thank you all for giving each family their own opportunity to make the decision with the grandfather clause as to whether the children will remain that are currently at Whispering Oak could remain there. So thank you for that. And I would like to also ask that in the future, if you have the numbers to build when you build the new relief school, that Whispering Oak, apologies, that Emerald Ridge, the community that I live in that is in walking distance to Whispering Oak, would be considered to be put back into Whispering Oak Elementary School. Emerald Ridge, like I said before, has a very safe walkway and is very close to it, and our community is strengthened by that. So, but Member Gould and I had a great conversation this morning, and I appreciate her time this morning. And I appreciate the board for listening to my input about the grandfather clause and hopefully reconsidering moving Emerald Ridge back to Whispering Oak at another date. Thank you so much.
Mr. Swickard. Yes, Mr. Swickard, thank you so much for calling in. All right, then that concludes our public comment on this. If there are no comments from board members, I will look to the board Member Gould.
Yes, Chair, I would like to propose this targeted rezoning for Southwest Middle School, Chain of Lakes and Southwest Middle School.
All right, thank you. And so we have a motion from Member Gould. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Member Cobert. Let me call a roll call vote on this then. Member Gallo?
Yes.
Member Lopez?
Aye.
Member Cobert?
Aye.
Member Gould?
Aye.
Dr. Gordon?
Aye.
Dr. Castor-Dental? Aye. Member Byrd?
Aye.
Did I miss anyone? Oh, myself. Aye. Seemed like we were a short one. Thank you. So we will now move on to, vote carries unanimously. We'll move on to item 303, request for approval of the rezoning for the targeted area from Whispering Oak Elementary School to Lake Whitney Elementary School to commence on August 20th. Dr. Jenkins, you're recognized.
Pobre Mavi, que no le dan agua.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This one was brought to Cabinet on April 6th. The process has been before the board. We are ready now for a final motion from the board member and a vote from the board.
All right, thank you. And I'm just going to confirm with Ms. Inbal that we do not have any other speakers on the call for this meeting. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. All right, so Member Gould, do you have a motion?
I do. I would like to move forward the targeted area rezoning from Whispering Oaks Elementary to Lake Whitney Elementary to commence in August of 2020.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Member Gould. We have a second from Dr. Gordon. Member Gallo, are you in favor?
Aye.
Member Lopez?
Aye.
Member Coburn?
Aye.
Vice Chair Gould?
Aye.
Dr. Gordon?
Aye.
Dr. Castrodental?
Aye.
Member Byrd?
Aye.
And I vote likewise in favor. The vote passes unanimously. And that should take us to, I'm sorry, I actually took 303 before 302. We'll go to 302 at this point. Request for approval of the rezoning for targeted area from Bay Meadows Elementary School to Sand Lake Elementary School to commence August 20th or August 2020. And Dr. Jenkins, back to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This was brought initially to Cabinet on April 6th, has gone through the entire process, including initial hearing before the board and presentation. We are ready now to entertain a motion and hear the board's resolve.
All right, thank you. And Vice Chair, back to you.
Thank you. Before I move this one forward, I just want to thank all of my board members and the community for their participation in this unusual targeted rezoning in order to help us manage the growth. In spite of all the things that we are thinking about lately as it comes to COVID and shrinking, we still have a lot of people joining our community on the west side that have already purchased homes. And we may not have the same rate of growth, but this will help to solve some of these issues. So thank you very much. So I'd like to move forward the targeted area rezoning of Bay Meadows Elementary School to Sand Lake Elementary School for commencement in August of 2020 or whenever school starts.
True. Motion by Member Gould. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion by Member Gould, seconded by Member Byrd. And Member Gallo, are you in favor?
Aye.
Member Lopez?
Aye.
Member Coburn?
Aye.
Member Gould?
Aye.
Dr. Gordon?
Aye.
Dr. Castrodental?
Aye.
Member Byrd?
Aye.
And I likewise vote in the affirmative. The motion carries unanimously. Do we have any other callers on the line, Ms. Enball?
There are no other callers.
Then I will give an abbreviated public comment announcement. I do not need to run through the rules. I do, for anyone who may be watching this meeting, I do want to make sure that the public is aware that through this process of having our virtual meetings, we have continued to create opportunities and new ways for the public to participate in our meetings. One, they can call in. That number is advertised and on our website. They can also send public comments via email the day before our meetings. And all of those emails are compiled and presented to board members. So let me confirm with each of our board members that they have received all written public comments from staff related to today's board meeting, beginning with Member Gallo.
Yes.
Member Lopez?
Yes.
Member Colbert?
Yes, read and reviewed.
Thank you. Member Gould?
Yes, received.
Dr. Gordon?
Yes.
Dr. Castor-Dental?
Yes.
Member Byrd?
Yes, I did.
Thank you. Likewise, I received it and had an opportunity to review them before this meeting. The phone number for callers that might wish to call into our future meetings, in case, again, you're participating now and want to know how you can call in, you call into the number 407-250-6270. And if you are calling to participate in our meeting for the regular agenda, you would need to call in between the hours of 5:15 and 5:30 to make it into the queue. And we, as we always do, we allow 3 minutes per speaker. Now let me turn to Dr. Jenkins for the adoption of the agenda, the consent agenda. Dr. Jenkins, any changes to the consent agenda?
There is one change. It is simply the report from internal audit that was on environmental. It is 1902. No action required, just information for the board.
Okay, so that's an addition to the agenda under
Yes.
1902. Thank you. So no changes to the consent agenda. Is there a motion from any board member to approve the consent agenda?
Move the consent, Madam Chair.
Motion by Dr. Gordon. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Member Lopez. Let me do roll call vote. Member Gallo.
Aye.
Member Lopez.
Aye.
Member Colbert.
Aye.
Member Gould.
Aye.
Dr. Gordon.
Aye.
Dr. Castor-Dental.
Aye.
Member Byrd.
Aye.
I vote in the affirmative. The motion carries unanimously. Hold with me just a minute. We're past the consent agenda. We have nothing on the non-consent agenda. We have under 1701, we are going to take up the issue of e-cigarettes and vaping products litigation. And I will turn at this point the meeting over to Ms. Enval.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. As a bit of background information, I had been approached by two separate law firms who have asked that the school board join litigation as an individual plaintiff against Juul, the manufacturer of e-cigarettes. In addition, at Ms. Colbert's suggestion after a presentation at FSBA, I reached out to a third law firm, which is representing Escambia County School Board. The firms and which Florida districts they represent have already been sent to you in a previous email. All of them are qualified and all of them have expertise, a plan for litigation, and have expended a significant amount of time and resources for their clients, the plaintiffs in this particular litigation. Previously, I did not have a recommendation for the board with respect to whether to become a plaintiff in the litigation because I needed to get some clarification from each law firm on strategies. And I also needed to evaluate the impact of vaping upon the district. I have since asked staff to gather some data about our tobacco infractions, and you'll hear from them shortly. This was a bit complicated since we report all tobacco-related infractions under Cessor as TBC without differentiating between traditional tobacco-related incidents such as smoking cigarettes and cigars versus electronic cigarette incidents such as Juul and other e-cigarette manufacturers. Also, we have since had telephone conversations with each law firm. So as you know, we had scheduled a work session on March 31st, 2020 to allow the law firms to present the litigation and to allow the school board the opportunity to discuss whether it wishes to become a plaintiff in the litigation. That work session was canceled in light of COVID-19. Because the litigation is progressing, moving forward more quickly than anticipated, I wanted to make sure you were able to discuss this as a school board and evaluate whether you wish to join as a plaintiff. To help you make that decision, I've invited the Mayer Law Firm to speak with you today. In an email to you yesterday, I had sent you a video that explains the litigation. That video link is also available on our agenda under this item for the public to view at its convenience. Once the Mayer Law Firm speaks to you, discipline staff has prepared a short presentation with an overview of OCPS data and our student tobacco infractions. Afterward, you'll have a chance to voice your opinion on the issue and determine whether you wish to move forward as a plaintiff. So before I get started, are there any questions from any school board member?
I do not see any questions, so why don't we move forward? Thank you.
I'll turn it over to the Mayer Law Firm. With us today, you have Steve Mayer, John Kiefer, and Kendall Moore. And I believe I think you can see them. I think they'll uncover their cameras so you can see them, and I will turn it over to them.
Thank you. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. My name is Steve Mayer. I'm with the Mayer Law Firm here in Winter Park, Florida. With me are my co-counsel, Kendall Moore and John Kiefer. We just want to spend a couple minutes with you this afternoon just to talk a little bit about this very concerning issue with our kids. I know that all of you have become more and more aware of the vaping problem that has been plaguing our students, our schools, and we are bringing suit against the Juul vaping company as well as other vaping companies on behalf of school districts all over the country. John Kiefer is at the law firm of Wagstaff and Cartmel, and his partner, Tom Cartmel, is on leadership of the national multi-district litigation that is ongoing right now with regard to the matter. I'm going to let him talk here in a moment, but I just want to kind of give you a little bit of background. My firm represented the state of Florida back in the 1990s on the tobacco litigation. We were able to recover a significant amount of money for the state on behalf of the monies that it spent treating Medicaid recipients for smoking-related illnesses. And what happened was we were able to recover many billions of dollars for the state. And as a result, the smoking incidence of students went way down from where it was when I was in high school. I went to Orange County Public Schools. I'm a product of it. And I remember at Winter Park High School, there was a smoking section in the late 70s, and a lot of people smoked. But that went down from 30-something% as a result of the money and the campaign against smoking down to probably around 3% of students. And that held steady at that until Juul started on the market in 2015. And now it's back up. Everything that we did, all the good that we did in tobacco has now been erased by Juul. And I want to go ahead and just at this point hand it over to John Kiefer. He's got a few things that he would like to impart to you as well. And then we're ready to take any questions afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you all for having us, and good evening. Appreciate you hosting us virtually. As Steve said, my name is John Kiefer. I'm a lawyer with the law firm Wagstaff and Cartmel in Kansas City, Missouri. My law firm, together with certain strategic partner firms, such as Steve Mayer's firm in Florida, we filed the first lawsuits in the country last fall against Juul on behalf of public schools. Currently, we represent about 60 school districts in a dozen states nationwide. Collectively, that is over 1,500 individual schools and over 1 million students. In the state of Florida, we represent Palm Beach County, Pinellas County, Seminole County, Lee County, Brevard County. We've filed suit for all of those except Brevard, and we are close to filing for Brevard. As Ms. Enval told you, there was a video distributed that really has a lot of background information on this litigation, so I'm going to attempt to be very brief this evening. I have a PowerPoint with a few slides I'll show you. I probably will not go through all of them in the interest of time, but I may hit the highlights, and then as Steve Mayer said, we'll both be happy to take questions here quite shortly. By now, you probably all are familiar with this company, Juul. They really revolutionized the electronic cigarette industry, unfortunately for the worst for public school students. I think a couple of statistics really put this problem into perspective. Although I unfortunately look considerably older. I'm about Steve Mayer's age. And when I was in high school in the early 1980s, smoking was not uncommon, but there were a not insignificant number of kids who smoked. This chart illustrates that in 1976, about 30% of public school students, teenagers, smoked traditional cigarettes. By 2016, you can see that rate declined to a little under 4%. That didn't happen by accident. That was a result of aggressive public education measures funded in no small part by a historic settlement that came about as a result of litigation against big tobacco. I don't think anyone other than perhaps the tobacco industry could credibly argue that that trend line absolutely went in the correct direction over the course of 40 years. The bad news is what it took a full 40 years and literally billions of dollars to accomplish, largely one company in the span of a little over 4 years has undone. This chart is actually about a year old. But as of 2018, you can see almost 30% of students reported using any sort of tobacco product. And the overwhelming majority of those products are electronic cigarettes and vaping products, not traditional combustible tobacco. This slide also is about a year old. This was at the end of 2018. And from 2017 to 2018, usage among high school students of these products went up by 78%. What is not on this slide is that during the same period of time, usage among middle school students went up 48%. In the year between 2018 and 2019, that data just came out, I think, in February, and the trend continues to go up. Remarkably, the former CEO of Juul admitted that they are, in fact, partly responsible for this crisis because they have 80% of the market. Now, he went on to say that wasn't their fault. They didn't intentionally target kids, but there's quite a record in the public domain already, even before this litigation, that Juul did, in fact, target kids. You've probably seen some of the imagery. It's out there in the public domain. Juul had a marketing campaign that was patently youth-oriented. They rented out billboards in Times Square. They had an aggressive social media campaign that really went viral. They hired celebrities and social media influencers. They used young models. One of the most striking things to me, this slide looks at some older tobacco industry ads, and it compares them to Juul ads. The frame in the upper right, I think, is remarkable in the sheer resemblance of the product to Marlboro cigarettes. Marlboro had a switch it up campaign. Juul had a make the switch campaign. This wasn't by accident. The folks that started the company borrowed pretty explicitly from big tobacco tactics. They normalize nicotine. Have a cigarette, have a Juul with your coffee. And you all have seen the results. These are images taken off the internet. We had to kind of disguise some of their identities because they're so young. But some of these kids, frankly, are not even in high school. The former commissioner of the FDA, Scott Gottlieb, placed the blame for this squarely at the feet of Juul. The product is highly, highly addictive. One of the pods in these devices is about the equivalent of 2 packs of cigarettes. The data is even more striking in that a substantial number of kids within 6 months of taking up electronic cigarettes are likely to begin smoking traditional cigarettes. There's also credible scientific data that show that this is e-cigarette use is a gateway to other drugs. So where do schools come in? I don't think I have to tell you all where schools come in. This has truly unleashed a plague on the public schools in terms of kids vaping in bathrooms, kids vaping in classrooms, kids vaping on school grounds. These devices are surreptitious. They're easy to hide. And honestly, from coast to coast, big schools and small schools, we hear the same stories. Teachers have to divert staff time to policing this. Some schools have had to hire new school resource officers, install technology like vape detectors. Discipline numbers and suspension numbers are off the charts. Additional resources are having to be poured into trying to keep kids current in their studies while perhaps they're suspended, things like that. So this litigation, let me just kind of fast forward. This litigation is based on what's called a public nuisance model. It is much the same as what is being followed in the national opioid litigation. And the idea is that Juul created what is called a public nuisance by targeting kids and addicting kids with this product. That nuisance has really become a plague in the schools, and Juul needs to be responsible financially to help clean up the problem. So whether that is funding courses aimed at prevention and treatment, cessation programs, money for additional school resource officers, money for monitoring technology, et cetera, that is what this lawsuit aims to recover. This litigation is currently venued in San Francisco under the supervision of one federal judge. My law firm is on the senior leadership team, and our law firm is the national liaison counsel to all governmental entities, either in the litigation or who wish to join the litigation. So that would be school districts. As I mentioned, we represent a number nationwide. We do this work on what is called a contingent fee basis, which means that we don't recover unless there is a net positive financial recovery for the school district. No one's entitled to reimburse our litigation expenses, attorney time, or anything of that nature. Ultimately, legal fees and expenses, if there is a net positive recovery for the schools, will be apportioned in some pro rata basis approved by a federal judge. And I would further add that the number of districts joining this litigation is growing certainly on a weekly basis, even in the midst of the current COVID-19 situation that's become kind of an obstacle. So that is an overview. Very briefly, my firm has done product liability and what we call mass tort litigation for over 15 years. We have held senior leadership positions in some of the largest litigations of the last 10 years. Mr. Mayor, as he indicated, his law firm really led the tobacco litigation on behalf of the state of Florida, on behalf of former Governor Lawton Chiles and former Attorney General Bob Butterworth. And so we do really believe that this particular legal team is well positioned to represent Orange County in this. We'd be honored to represent you, and we think the litigation has a lot of merit. And frankly, we cannot imagine more deserving or sympathetic plaintiffs than the public schools and the constituent families and children that you all represent. So with that, I will kind of conclude my comments, and Steve and I will be happy to take any questions that any of you may have.
All right, thank you. Let me, I have several school board members who have indicated a desire to comment. Maybe questions, it may just be comments. Let's begin with Vice Chair Gould.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the Council's presentation. This is a far greater threat to our children than any other vice before it. With the amount of choices in flavors that have been targeted to these kids, the ability to hide it as a thumb drive for many, it is very hard to monitor, and we have no idea the full health ramifications of this. So I really appreciate this knowledge. So if we were to become a plaintiff in this, would funds be directly allocated back to Orange County Public Schools? And would that work in a percentage? How would that work in order to put resources in our hands and in our community's hands to combat this issue?
That's an excellent question. And here's what I can tell you. Part of it remains to be seen, but the larger answer to your question is likely yes is the answer. And specifically what I mean by that is if you were to become a plaintiff, Orange County would have its own lawsuit. So it would be the school board of Orange County versus Juul. All right. That's how we filed the Palm Beach case and all of the others. This is not a class action where everyone is lumped together in sort of one class and doesn't necessarily have a say in settlement. This is not an action brought by some other entity like an attorney general. this is an action, if you all were to go forward, that would be brought forward by Orange County. So Orange County would have a say in whether its case was settled or not, if a settlement was offered, whether that settlement was deemed satisfactory. And Orange County's case, if settled, those proceeds would, net of attorney's fees or expenses, those proceeds would be Orange County's proceeds to spend as Orange County sees fit. Now, in all likelihood, assuming there is a settlement at the end of the day, and usually there is, in all likelihood, there would be some sort of apportionment or allocation methodology. So if there's X amount of dollars, simply by virtue of Orange County's size, I think it's highly likely there would be a methodology that would account for the number of children in your district, the number of middle and high schools in your district, perhaps the extent and prevalence of the vaping problem in your district. In contrast to, say, a school district in the state of Kansas that has 5,000 kids. So all the details of that would be worked out later, but generally you're correct in the way that you are thinking about it, and that's why we are filing these as individual cases.
Anything else, Member Gold? All right, thank you. Excellent question. Member Coburn.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank Mr. Kiefer, Mr. Mayor, for being here with us tonight, giving us some more information. I began doing some research on this in the fall of last year. You all know I sit on the board of directors for FSBA, and when I saw a presentation in Tallahassee, I have to tell you, at first I was skeptical. Do we as school districts have a role in this? But the more I heard about the ramifications of this product and the effect on children, it made me think, number one, every one of us who sits on this board is an advocate for children, a fierce advocate for children. And every one of us who sits on this board is a champion for Article 9, Section 1 of our Florida Constitution, which requires that our schools are uniform, efficient, safe, secure, and high quality. And this problem goes to the heart of many of those issues. And I believe that it is our responsibility to ensure that our students have all of those qualities that are required in our Florida Constitution. As constitutional officers and as advocates for children, I feel very strongly that this is a path that we should go down. Also, in talking with our own general counsel, and looking at the different firms and the different approaches of the different firms, I believe that Mr. Kiefer's firm and Mr. Mayor's firm are the right choices. We have the advantage of having local counsel here in Orange County. I believe that they are highly, highly qualified. And I do also agree with the public nuisance approach to this litigation. So it is my strong recommendation that we join this effort in support and defense of our children, and that this is the right team to do it.
It sounds like that was a motion almost, and Member Coburn will continue to take comments, but because of the leadership role and interest you've taken in this, do you want to offer that in the form of a motion?
I would, thank you, Chair. I would like to make a motion that we join the litigation against Juul on behalf of our children, and that we utilize the talents of the Mayor law firm.
All right, excellent. We have a motion. We have two more speakers. We have a second coming from Member Castor-Dental and Member Gallo, and then we'll hear from Member Castor-Dental, and then from Member Gordon. So starting with Member Gallo, Castor-Dental, Member Gordon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just would like to say that I agree with what Member Gould and Member Coburn has just stated, so I won't rehash it. I would like to thank the law firm for their presentation. That was fabulous. I too have been looking into the Juul and the whole epidemic surrounding this with our children, because the PTA's played a part in it, and is in process of developing a resolution around it. So I too am in support of filing litigation against Juul. I do think that this is an epidemic towards our kids. I know that it has taxed our resources here locally at Orange County Public Schools. It is hard to detect. It has very little odor, and it is hurting our children. So as a champion for children, as Member Cobert mentioned, I too believe that we should join this lawsuit. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. Member Kester-Dennell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to, of course, support the law firm of Mayor, the Mayor law firm, because of their experience in this type of litigation in the past and their success. Just a side note, when I was in the legislature, there were cigarette companies that came to my office in Tallahassee and were trying to persuade me that the e-cigarettes were safer. And they were able to get flavors that we told them no, because that's targeting children. And they had also bright colors on their packages. And they insisted that that had nothing to do with attracting children. And they are trying to exploit the school environment that's part of their plan, for them to use the school environment for their product to be distributed and advertised among friends. And I don't think that our district numbers of discipline cases will be able to accurately depict the story of how pervasive this is in our schools. If you want to know how pervasive it is, talk to teenagers. They can tell you story after story about how it's done in the school, and it goes on undetected. It is very difficult, and that's the way the Juul companies and the cigarette companies, that's how it's designed. So not only does this lawsuit help us to recoup some costs of trying to stop kids from harming themselves, but I think what is needed are those punitive damages that will hurt these companies that are hurting our kids. And we are not equipped at the school to handle this crisis. And it is, people are making a lot of money off of hurting our kids, and it's by design. And I am all for going all after these companies to help our kids. So I appreciate it, and thank you for bringing it to us.
Okay, Member Dr. Gordon.
Yes, I just have some questions. Do we have a report coming from our staff? They are going to show us the data that they have gathered from our high schools and middle schools and elementary schools?
Yes, we do. They're ready whenever you are.
Okay, well, let me give my 4 questions, and they might want to write it down and come back. But I'm concerned at the point, and I do thank Member Colbert for bringing this to our attention, and I do thank the General Counsel and the Superintendent for seeing the need. I think most of you know I am in a school where the kids are expelled for certain things, and we've learned a lot from that particular school to create our own, because we used to put our kids completely out for doing certain things. And now there is somewhere for them to go and to get help. My number 1 question is, if OCPS becomes a plaintiff, which is not in this, and not it being a class action, and we're as an individual, because you mentioned that there were 60 school districts with 1 million students. So if we're not a class action, and we out there individually by ourselves like Palm Beach was? But I would like to know, just write it down and then and answer it before they give us the data. But what is more powerful? Because we've been caught up. I've been on this board 20 years, and we've been in a lot of little different things and lawsuits and plaintiffs, and had to find out if we have standing in anything. So I just would hate to see us jump out there, even though you come with great background. And I know you know what you're doing, but how powerful is it to be out there by yourself against these giants? We know how powerful the tobacco industry is, and you showed how powerful they can be by just going back using former commercial tactics to get to our kids. That's question number one. What's more powerful? Number two, what documents are you looking at in Orange County that would make us want to go out there and really do this? Okay. And and then a part of that is, what documents are we looking at that we can win with our own students when we're in a pandemic and we can't even control grown-ups? So how are we going to control students in this endeavor? I don't know if anybody had really taken a look at that. And then that was 2A. And then number 3, the distribution of the funds. I've been in other districts where they have gained monetary value from certain lawsuits, and sometimes the money was not used to go back and educate in that area and provide resources to educate the students on the danger. They just got the money, but then the kids kept smoking. And I was at Winter Park High School during that time. I was one of the career counselors there when we had smoking sessions. So I know what you're talking about there. And the last question, how can you regulate a public nuisance? How do you regulate the students? What have you seen happen from the other districts that you can bring to show us that would make us, me alone, because I'm hearing my other colleagues saying yes, but I'm a little skeptical, but not skeptical. I know you got the power to do it, but I do need those questions kind of cleared, and then I need to see the data that have been gathered from OCPS, because we see our Code of Student Conduct report and we see our expulsions and all of that, but it's no way near what you have been involved with Palm Beach and Lee and Brevard County and all that. So, because those litigations are very heavy. So if you can answer those for me, those 4.5 questions, I would be grateful. And then, Madam Chair, I would love to see what our district has to show us. And maybe the other boards have been privy to it, but I have not been privy to the data that have been gathered from OCPS.
Okay, can I ask one clarifying question, Dr. Gordon? Did you want Ms. Envol to?
No, I need the gentleman. I need the gentleman to answer those for me, please.
Thank you very much.
These are to the law firm.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm happy to try to address those. As to question 1, I think the question was essentially, what's the stronger position to be an individual plaintiff versus a class action? And I think the phrase was used sort of out there by ourselves. Let me say this. Lawyers' opinions may vary as to what is the better strategy for a particular plaintiff in a particular litigation with a certain set of facts. We feel quite strongly here that it is a superior position of strength for school districts to be filed as individual cases, not as a class action. But let me distinguish between those two. In a class action, everyone is lumped together in a single lawsuit. And if the lawsuit fails for one, it fails for all. And so without getting into the legal weeds unnecessarily, we feel like there is greater vulnerability in the class action framework because, for example, if Jewel can persuade the judge to knock out certain legal claims, right, it knocks out those legal claims for everybody. And I do understand your point about, gee, do we want to be out there kind of all by ourselves? Here's what I'd say. You're not out there all by yourself, because here's the thing. Even though there may be 60 separate schools that have filed, they are all currently aggregated, supervised by one federal judge, essentially being managed for purposes of working up the case and discovery as a single case. But they each have their own stories to tell. They each have their own damages and harms they can claim. They each have their own right to claim compensation. And guess what? If, let's say, a case gets tried for Tucson Unified Public Schools in Arizona, and let's say that case, for whatever reason, doesn't go well, That doesn't necessarily affect Orange County. Orange County gets its own separate turn up to bat. And what we find is it's more intimidating to these big companies to think, gee whiz, I've got hundreds potentially of individual schools ready to take a swing at me instead of
It's a strategy. It's a great strategy. You got it.
Yep.
Okay, very good.
Your second question was sort of what documents are we looking at? Here's what I would say. I think you're going to hear in just a few moments from folks in your district about, for example, discipline data and vaping data. What I can tell you is every school that I've talked to for the last 6 months, literally big to small, coast to coast, urban to rural, they all have many of the same problems. They can't control it. It's so easy to hide. It's a distraction, unlike anything that's been seen before. They're disciplining students in record numbers. And so the position that I have taken is I take a school district client as I find them, right? And so if Orange County has fantastic data that documents this problem, or if they have recorded certain costs that they have incurred, fantastic, I'll take that. But if you don't have that, that's not a problem, because realistically, the question is not so much what has Orange County Public Schools done so far. The question is, what's it going to take and what's it going to cost to eliminate this problem in the next 1 year, 3 years, 5 years? And the answer to that question is really my job and the job of the expert team that we will hire to say, here's the sorts of programs you need aimed at prevention. Here's the kind of counseling and treatment services you need. Here's the supervisory resources you need. And it's my job to put that together. And we will put that together. Your third question about distribution of funds, great question. And one of the board members earlier touched on that. I don't mean this in any way as a knock against tobacco litigation, but for example, I know here in my home state of Kansas, Kansas got quite a bit of money 20 years ago as a result of the settlement against big tobacco. But you know what? A lot of that money went into the state budget general fund to do things like fix potholes, right?
That's right.
It didn't necessarily go into education.
Right.
One huge benefit, we think, of school districts suing on their own, in their own name, because it's schools and their students that have been harmed here, is if there's a financial recovery, it's Orange County's financial recovery. And Orange County gets to decide what to do with that money. And so if it's, for example, this board, presumably, you'd be aiming funds at the problem versus, repaving playgrounds and things like that. So we think it's a huge advantage for schools to be suing in their own right, in their own name, because in effect, you control your own destiny in the lawsuit. And then your last question was, how do you regulate a public nuisance? Well,
thank you.
Excellent question. Here's what I'd say. This lawsuit is not about regulating the public nuisance. Regulation, for better or for worse, is a function of the federal and state governments, the Food and Drug Administration, who hopefully will act in a proactive way in the months and years to come. This litigation is about suing to recover money damages that have resulted and will continue to result from a public nuisance that Jewel created, right? And so to solve a problem like this, typically it takes multiple prongs. It takes legislation, it takes policy making, it takes it takes education, it takes money, it often takes litigation. And those last two things are inextricably intertwined. The goal of litigation, I as a lawyer cannot make policy. I can't get folks in Tallahassee or in Washington or at the FDA to do things. But what I can do is I can take action as a lawyer to try to hold responsible the folks that created this public nuisance and make them pay money to remediate it, if that sort of makes sense.
Yes. Okay. I think you got them all.
Okay.
I think you did extremely well, Attorney Kiefer, in doing that, and to the mayor's law firm. I'm very impressed with your document. One final question, Madam Chair, if you would allow me to address. All righty. Thank you. One point bothers me. you know, like I said, I've been on this board for quite some time, and I know that gifts comes into our schools. And I would consider this, if you do win something of this, and you have won, you know, before, but a lot of times things are not earmarked. And I resent it to an extent because boards get into a tizzy. And you say, we're going to do this because I feel if something is done in the name of the kids, so I'm wondering, is this in the name of OCPS? Because according to what you just said here, you were saying that the recovery is OCPS, but you know, I'm an earmarking person. Don't send my babies out there and then you use them, and these kids are hooked and hung because it's gonna get worse. And I think you know it is going to get worse because look what has happened to the tobacco industry. They are not going to stop. And I think you know that. You've been dealing with them. All of us have been dealing with them. We all have loved ones that's hooked on cigarettes. We all have somebody we know that we were able to get off. That doesn't always happen. So I'm wondering about the air marking and the delegation when you do put the clause together, because you are the legal department. I mean, what do you recommend when you get the money, when it comes in? You know, just say, okay, this belongs to the board. The board can build playgrounds. No. I mean, I would say no at that particular time. But I do know how boards, we've had communities to give us land, and we've used it up to no avail and never built a school like some people have asked us to do. I mean, I've seen different things happen, and I've seen where we had to go in and use money for other things. But I'm asking about earmarking clause, you know, that it is that this money be used for the betterment of the children. Even if it means taking them on trips, different places to see what tobacco can really do to your system, visiting a cancer society. I just see deeper. I see deeper than just winning money and bringing it back into the district. What are your goal and your firm goals when it comes to that?
Is that a question you'd like me to respond to?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so again, excellent question. The first part of that question was, would this be a recovery sought on behalf of OCPS? And the answer is absolutely yes. So let me be clear. There's nothing about the lawsuit that would seek to put money into the pocket of a child or family. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but that's not what this lawsuit is intended to do. It is intended to provide money to OCPS to do things, in your words, for the betterment of the children. So, for example, education programs deployed in the schools about the dangers of vaping. For kids who are having problem with it, counseling services or treatment
counselors, but giving a counselor on tobacco, have a tobacco alcohol counselor. I mean, that's what these are the resources that we are lacking today.
Right.
And those are the type of things. So that's why I wanted to know, how deep do your firm goes in looking at, restoring back. You're out there doing it. How can it benefit those that are affected?
So you hit the nail on the head, and let me just briefly sum up and say what we call that in legal terms, what we will be responsible with our expert team in developing is sometimes called a damages model. It's sometimes called an abatement plan. The idea is, what does it take to fix it? What are all the different things? Education, prevention, treatment, supervision, all those sorts of things. We do develop that, and we will put a cost on that. And it is all aimed at, in your words again, the betterment of the kids, preventing this in the future. Now, to your last part of your question, though, on earmarking, we the lawyers all we can do is try to get a really good recovery for Orange County. We can't then tell Orange County, you must.
Well, I know that, right.
Right.
But I know you lawyers advise.
Yeah.
Listen, well done. Well done, Attorney Kiefer. Well done. All right, Madam Chair, I thank you. I'm now looking at the data that we have to see if my vote will be in there to help us to move forward.
All right, thank you. So are you looking for anything from Ms. Enval at this time? Or shall I go to the next board member?
I'm looking for the data that she's going to present to us.
Yes. All right, thank you. So Ms. Enval, I have 3 board members queued up to speak. Are you ready to present that data, or shall I go to them?
We're ready. If you want to go now, Valencia Boyd is in the boardroom and she's ready to give you a snapshot of some preliminary data. We didn't do too far deep digging because we still need to know, how far we need to go, but we do have some preliminary figures.
Let me do this because I'm sure, I take it back, there's 2 board members, and I'm sure that their comments or questions will probably be brief. So let me go to Member Castro-Dental and then Member Cobert, and then we'll go to that presentation. Member Castro-Dental.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have 2 questions real quick for the attorneys. With the lawsuits being filed individually for each school district, are they going to be filed in different jurisdictions, different courthouses? Are they all going to be in the location of where the jewel company manufactures their items, or where are those going to be lodged?
Yep. Okay. Excellent question. So as it relates to Orange County, we could either file the lawsuit in federal district court in Florida, or we can file it directly into what is called the MDL, multi-district litigation, in federal court in San Francisco. Either way, it will end up being transferred to San Francisco. So if we file it in Florida, it'll be transferred to federal court in San Francisco, where one federal judge is supervising all cases against Jewel. And that's not just school cases. That's personal injury cases, addiction cases, all that sort of thing. And all of those different cases sort of get worked up and developed through what we call discovery. And then if the cases are not settled, then if they're set for trial, they can either be tried in San Francisco by consent of the school district, or they can be sent back for trial here in Florida. I won't go on in the interest of time, but they are all consolidated currently in this proceeding called a multi-district litigation in San Francisco.
Member Castellano, anything else?
Yes, one more question. You said that you've already hired, or you've been hired by other school districts on a contingency fee basis, and we have yet to establish that. Can you tell us what some of the fee agreements are with the other districts?
We can. I think they're all a matter of public record. I think it has been substantially the same agreement with all districts, with the caveat that occasionally the general counsel of a particular district asks for a modification to a provision here or there. And on the whole, we've been able to accommodate those requests. But quite simple, it's a pretty simple contingent fee structure. It is, we advance all case expenses. We do all of the work, and only if there is a net positive recovery for the district are we entitled to be paid back our expenses and an attorney's fee. The standard contract calls for a 25% contingent attorney's fee, which is on the low end of what you typically see. But I do hasten to add that will ultimately be subject to approval by a federal judge. And the members of our federal judiciary are not shy about cutting down attorney's fees if they think that they are in any way excessive. This particular judge seems to, he has a very close eye on this litigation. He has auditors every month looking at attorney expense reports and things like that. And so there is no question that the work the lawyers do in this case will be scrutinized by the court. But to answer your question, it is typically a 25% contingent attorney's fee.
Thank you. I appreciate it. That's all, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Member Coburn, you're recognized.
Thank you. First, just quick comment to Drs. Gordon and Drs. Castro-Dental. I think you should add law degrees to your repertoire because your cross-examination of counsel has been outstanding.
Well, you brought it to us, and we love you for doing that. You brought one of the best.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, we're very familiar with their work. You brought one of the best. We just needed to know a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you. And in light of those questions, I would like to make a slight amendment to my motion to ensure that we have on the record, amend my motion to designate Emmy Enval as our legal representative to negotiate the terms with these outside law firms to retain them as outside counsel, and that she bring that agreement before this board for approval.
I believe that's in the board. I think that's in the board doc.
All right, would the seconder agree to that amendment? All right, so we'll roll that into the main motion.
Okay.
So let's hear from Ms. Enval now for a presentation.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, for clarity, ask her, I thought we read that in there in the board doc.
It is.
I read it somewhere.
Okay. Was that part of the recommendation from you, Ms. Enval?
Yes, Dr. Gordon, you are correct. That is.
All right. Yeah, I think I will get my law degree.
You did a good job.
That's the next one I'll get.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that the motion was clear. Yep,
Thank
you're
you.
good. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Valencia Boyd, and she's going to give you some data updates for us as they pertain to OCPS. And again, this is just preliminary data. It's not finalized, but we just wanted to give you an overview of the number of tobacco infractions that we've had over the past 4 or 5 years.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Superintendent Jenkins, and school board members. Tonight, I will be presenting data regarding tobacco and vaping use among OCPS students and how the data is obtained based on FDOE requirements. The FDOE requires each school district in the state of Florida to report data through the School Environmental Safety Incident Reporting System, which is also referred to as SESR. This system currently collects data on 26 incidents of crime, violence, and disruptive behaviors that occur on school grounds, on school transportation, and at off-campus school-sponsored events during any 24-hour period, 365 days per year. Tobacco is a SESR incident defined as the possession, use, distribution, or sale of tobacco or nicotine products on school grounds, at school-sponsored events, or on school transportation by any person under the age of 18. The OCPS Code of Student Conduct aligns with SESR definitions and reporting structure and includes tobacco as a Level 3 offense. The OCPS's definition of a tobacco-related offense is substantially similar to the definition provided by SESR and also includes examples. The definition that is listed in our Code of Student Conduct is the possession, use, distribution, or sale of tobacco products or items represented to be of said nature. This may include, but is not limited to, electronic cigarettes, CBD oil, jewels, vapors, and hookah pens that do not contain THC. This slide shows the number of tobacco-related incidents that occurred each year for the past 5 years. The first chart we have provided for you has the total number of tobacco-related incidents that occurred within OCPS from the 2015-16 to March of the current school year. The middle graph provides the number of vaping-related incidents that occurred within OCPS for the 2015-16 through the 2018-19 school year. The last graph represents the percentage of incidents that involve vaping out of the total number of tobacco incidents reported to FDOE for each year. Data from the current school year is not available because our current student management system does not allow for us to specifically search for vaping within the tobacco offense. However, should the board decide to proceed with the lawsuit, we may be able to manually pull this information for review if needed. A manual review would require us to look at each tobacco offense to determine if vaping was involved in the description. As you can see from the information on this slide, we experienced a substantial increase in our total tobacco numbers in 2017-18 school year. However, the number of vaping offenses has more than doubled each school year since 2016-17, and we expect it to continue to climb. I'd also like to mention that these numbers are preliminary and additional manual review of the numbers would be required to account for variables, which we could potentially do should the board decide to proceed. These variables include offenses that may not fall under the tobacco offense within our code, such as if vaping is coded as contraband or if there are drugs involved with the vaping. Then it would be coded as a drug offense, not a tobacco offense. In addition, due to our reporting structure to the state, we are not required to differentiate between vaping and other nicotine products. So these numbers were obtained by searching for vaping terms under our tobacco offenses. However, if a school did not input a specified term in their discipline summary, then that number would not be included in the vaping data presented. We have also provided the total number of tobacco-related offenses from all Florida school districts that were reported through Cesar. As with the numbers for OCPS, you can see an increase of tobacco-related offenses starting with the 2017-2018 school year. This concludes the presentation. Thank you for allowing me to present this information to you. If you have any questions or comments, I welcome them at this time. Superintendent Jenkins.
Thank you. Members of the board, just so you're clear, on the student information system, our new student information system, we are pursuing an IT solution so that we can separate out vaping from other tobacco issues in the past. Clearly, even without the latest data for this year, you see significant increases. I think the board is wise to consider intervening at this point, lest we have a generation similar to those who were taken advantage of by the tobacco industry in years past. So thank you for that presentation. Any questions from the board, we're happy to entertain.
Okay, we have a question from or comment from Member Gallo.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for that presentation. I agree. I think those numbers are quite low, and I do believe that when we do some digging, that the numbers that we will find will be much larger than what was presented in the presentation. I do have a question. I know that when a child or a student is caught with a Juul or a vaping instrument, that we have to test it for THC because it changes the level from a level 3 to a level 4, and then the police may have to get involved if there's THC. Do we know the cost associated with us testing that? How much do we pay to have to test all those pods?
I currently do not have that information available. However, that is something that we can research and get an answer for you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's all, Madam Chair.
All right, that was the last comment we have from board members. Presentation is concluded. We have a motion from Member Colbert, a second from Member Castor-Dental. If there's no further comments from board members, I'm going to do.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, you do have other comments.
I'm sorry.
You have 3642.
Oh, sorry. I don't know how that happened. Thank you. Member Gould, thank you so much. Member Gould, and then Member Gordon, and then Member Castriano. Member Gould.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you also, Member Gordon, for catching that.
Yes.
The community has been very aware of this vaping issue as well. And, when you look at a lot of our disciplines, you see there's been vaping incidents. So I agree that those numbers are low. As if we decide to move forward with this evening, some resources that may be good to tap are organizations like the Winter Park and the West Orange Healthy Foundations and Health Foundations. They have been looking at this issue as well as our two hospitals. It was one of the top health issues that came up in the latest community-wide survey. It was thrown in with tobacco, but it was indicated from the vaping and seeing indications in vaping. So there is further data that would support the incidences of that are happening in our community and in our youth, and I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Member Gordon, and then Member Castrodental.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I think that Board Member Gould is going to be very instrumental and helpful with us with the health background that she brings with her connection with the organization. And then remember, even in this pandemic that we have, the unions wanted us to know, at least I could speak and say the American Federation of Teachers, they wanted us to know that the health departments are with us, not just with this pandemic, but when it comes to other things affecting our students. So I want to give hats off to her and keeping up with that and all of the help part that she brought to us. But my question, I wanted to ask them to bring that last slide back up with the OCPS on the tobacco, the vaping, and the vaping percentages. If they would bring that last slide back up for me, please. Right there. Okay. I noted, can they clarify this for me? Because I know we're thinking it's low, but it says this number reflects only the month of August 2019 to March 2020. So that's not even the number of years. With 4 years of high school and, and 3 years of middle school, and we do have a few kids that smoke elementary because that's why we get them, okay, in certain programs, and they come to certain schools. Okay, so what they might want to just talk about that, because my comment is the truth has not yet been told with these numbers. I really don't believe the truth has been told, and we're only looking at a small percentage of the data. And I really thank them for this fine report at this, to try to put this together for us. But we are in not a downward trend, we are in an upward trend. When you have 75% vaping in 2018-19, imagine what data they will bring to us next year. So I want to commend Board Member Colbert again and our General Counsel and Superintendent for you all really trying to get a head start on this, because the vaping is one thing, but we did not talk about the deaths that have happened from vaping. We did not bring that element up, and I'm sure that this great law firm has some numbers on that, but I want to ask them to devour that today. I'm sure that's going to come to us because we hear about them on the news, and the pandemic has kind of put them aside right now. So I did want to bring that the truth have not yet been told. And again, I say thank you. So I just wanted to know the numbers are low because it's not a lot of time gathering it. So it's August to March. So that's what we are looking at. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Superintendent and General Counsel.
Absolutely. Member Castrodental.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just was having some thoughts about this data and how the closing of schools not only affects our ability to track whether this is growing or not, but it kind of allows us to examine the way that the vaping companies are exploiting our schools as a way to grow their clientele. It might be interesting to see through student surveys how many kids are vaping now that they're not at school. It might be holding steady, or they might not have the same access to the e-cigarettes or the pods, or to their friends who may be sharing it and distributing it. So the fact that we might see a decline momentarily, I think could make the case even stronger that our schools are hurting and that they are exploiting our school setting and endangering more kids that way. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you. So next, Ms. Enval, do you have any response to that?
I just had a point of clarification. We wanted to pull just the tobacco infractions, and that was the data that was just presented. In the event, a lot of the vaping offenses, they result with the use, with THC use. And so then those are classified as a drug offense, a DRU, because they're a higher level offense. And so we would have to manually go through those. So just for this presentation, we pulled just the tobacco numbers, but we can pull that other data, but it's going to be a manual process. And we didn't want to do that unless the board decided to move forward. And then we do move forward, we'll work with outside counsel to determine what kind of data they need.
Okay. I'm going to double check here because it didn't scroll down. I think we are caught up on comments from board members. Yes? All right. Then I am now going to do a roll call vote on the motion. Member Gallo?
Aye.
Member Lopez?
Aye.
Member Covert?
Aye.
Member Gould?
Aye.
Dr. Gordon?
Aye.
Dr. Castrodental?
Aye.
Member Byrd?
Aye.
And I likewise vote in the affirmative. The motion carries unanimously. Excellent presentation, gentlemen. I do want to echo the words of the board. Very, very solid presentation. I thought I understood this issue fairly well, but some of your statistics were just staggering and frankly nauseating, and information that we need to get out more and more to the public. I also just want to comment as well that if this isn't a predatory practice on our students, I don't know what is. It's just outrageous, and we have worked so hard as a society winning that lawsuit and being able to pour funds back into campaigns to educate our youth about the dangers of smoking, and to be set back so far so fast for greed is, again, it's despicable, it's un-American, it's predatory, and I am proud to support our fellow board members in supporting you. Go forth, do good, Godspeed, and we'll stay in touch. And Amy, we have the utmost confidence in you. You're doing a phenomenal job. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, we will move on then to informational items. Dr. Jenkins?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of things to share with you. If you recall, last time we were together, I told you we were looking diligently at those students who had not been in touch with us and we've been unable to reach. Comes to about a 1.3% of our 212,000 students. And so I mentioned that our SROs were going to be helping us in that effort. And I want to be very clear in case anyone was offended when a police officer or deputy sheriff came knocking. As our SROs went out, those were considered safety and wellness checks. In fact, I believe it was Member Gallo who first raised the issue. If students were actually in school in attendance, we would know if someone were missing, and we would have truancy after them, or social workers going out to make sure that they were safe. And so we used, certainly under our collective bargaining agreement, we certainly could not insist on social workers making home visits under these circumstances, but our SROs have been extremely helpful. And I want to say they have accounted for about a third of those individual students that we've been looking for. Some, of course, had moved, some were having connectivity issues, and some were not turning in their work. In fact, one story that may have seemed comical to the SRO was probably not that comical to the student and the mother, because she said, I see him on the computer every day. I am certain he's been doing his work, and it turns out he hadn't turned in a single assignment. So he's on the computer doing something. And the SRO was able to confirm with her that he had not been at least reaching the school with any of his productivity. So very pleased. Thanks again to our law enforcement SROs who've been helping us go out to make sure our children are safe. Again, I want to make sure no one would feel offended. It is really intended to make sure children are safe and accounted for. Number two, mention to all of you that May 21st we'll be having conversations and letting the board opine and help us brainstorm around not just summer school, but around some of the issues we'll have to deal with for school reopening. What we're really hopeful for, but I cannot guarantee, is that we'll have some guidance from Florida's Department of Education by that time. If we do not, we will certainly still do our brainstorming. But I have to reassure everyone that the state will probably largely guide what we're able to do with the opening of schools. If you recall, the commissioner actually sent out a survey asking, should school start at its regular time? Should it start after Labor Day? Should it be pushed back further? Do you have connectivity? Do you have laptops at home that you're able to help your children if we continue the distance learning? And so on. Cannot promise you where we'll end up, but I want us to be prepared for any of three scenarios: coming back to school, having a hybrid approach, or if the state so determines, continuing distance learning. Which brings me to my next point. We are leaning toward not trying to collect all of our laptops, over 140,000 laptops. High schoolers have kept their laptops over the summer in the past anyway. Middle schoolers, we have collected. In elementary, we've not actually been sending them home with them on a regular basis. And so we're really concerned that if there is a need for further remediation or an attempt by the state to extend distance learning, that we not be premature in gathering in all of our devices and then being in a bit of a pickle if we have to try to redistribute. Should school start be delayed, or should there be a blended model? So we're wrestling with that, having that discussion as well. I want to hear the board's thinking on that by the time we get together on May 21st. Secondly, and remember, school ends on May 27th, so our end of year process would be collecting those laptops. I want to assure you, though, our seniors, yeah, you're going to need to turn in your laptops. We need to collect those, but others, we're considering whether or not we let students hang on to them, because there are enrichment activities and remedial activities, things that we might want to make them privy to over the summer. Which brings me to our third point. We are delighted that we have about $55 million coming in the CARES Act stimulus dollars that we will intend to use to help the last group of our students that do not have their laptops one-to-one. If you remember, elementary was in thirds. Cohort 7 we dealt with this year and had the additional federal dollars in Title II and Title IV that actually raised them to the one-to-one ratio that we were considering. The last group, Cohort 8, is the last 1/3 of our elementary schools, about 18,169 devices that need to be purchased. And we have clearance that the $55 million coming from the CARES Act can be used for technology. That's good news on a couple of levels. One, certainly that we have dollars that will get one-to-one ratio for that last 1/3 of our students. But two, it relieves some of our capital dollars, because we know, given the economic downturn, that the sales tax dollars may take a hit and be somewhat less than what had been projected previously. So that CARES money we will use to make sure our last cohort, the last 1/3 of our elementary schools, get their laptops as well. And I do need to say, just for the board's information, so if the CARES money comes July 1, we will use some of our carryover money to make sure we make those orders. Our IT staff says there is a run on the market. Everyone's trying to get their laptops in place now because they fear what may actually happen with distance learning. We can probably get ours ordered and have them back in about a 35-day turnaround if we order swiftly. So we will plan to use some of our carryover dollars. About $7.9 million is what we'll use out of the $55 million from our CARES Act. And then you will have total equity in all of your schools with the one-to-one provision. Lastly, promise you we had a video for our military students. We are certainly so proud of our students that are both graduating from high school and making a commitment to help defend this nation. And so we have a video presentation, but we're also going to use it like we did our Super Scholars and give more and more exposure to our young graduates who have bravely volunteered for military service. I want to let you be the first to see that video.
Hello, Orange County Public Schools, class of 2020. I'm Harold Border, Orange County Public Schools Chief of High Schools, and as a former member of the United States Navy and proud father of a cadet at the United States Military Academy in West Point, it's with great honor that I salute our 235 young ladies and men who are choosing to step forward and serve their nation. It was generations before you who've made our country stronger by stepping forward and serving after 9/11 in the conflicts of Iraq, Iran, and Afghanistan, choosing to serve during the Vietnam conflict, the Korean War, World War I, World War II, and even over 100 years ago during a global pandemic and while we were mired in the Great Depression. They too stepped forward and furthered our nation. So on behalf of all of Orange County Public Schools and all of our communities, it is with pride and gratitude that we thank you for your sacrifice. Godspeed, my military brothers and sisters. Please enjoy a few clips of our graduates who will serve our nation.
My name is Edgar Lucero. I'm from Timber Creek High School, and I'll be enlisting into the United States Navy.
My name is Amanda Asuncion. I'm a senior at Cypress Creek High School, and I'm now entering the United States Army.
My name is Jeffrey Allen, and I'm a senior at Evans High School, and I plan to attend FAMU at the Army RTC program.
My name is Amaya Rice. I'm a senior at Apopka High School, and I'm committed to the United States Marine Corps.
My name is Miles Williams, a senior at Edgewater High School, and I'm entering the United States Navy.
My name is Brian Sully, Freedom High School senior, and I'll be joining the United States Marine Corps Reserve.
Hi, my name is Joanne Laurier. I'm a senior at Jones High School, and I'm entering the United States Army.
Hi, my name is Lucas Martins. I'm a senior at Olympia High School, and I'll be joining the United States Coast Guard.
My name is Ethan Pawpaw. I attend Ocoee High School, and I plan on joining the United States Air Force.
My name is Sarah Myers. I'm a senior at Olympia High School, and I will be attending the United States Naval Academy. Go Navy!
Superintendent Jenkins here with just a few brief comments. I hope you enjoyed seeing our wonderful graduates who have already made a commitment to the military service. We are extremely proud of these young people. They make a difference in our country, and Orange County Public Schools is very appreciative for their service. Here's the thing. Graduating from high school is a very big accomplishment. Making a commitment to military service is certainly an extreme accomplishment as well. So I hope our entire community will help us celebrate these young people. To each of our graduates, congratulations and Godspeed.
Thank you so much. Wow, thank you. That was just 2 weeks ago, or was it last week when we had the family call in and we said, can we do something special for our seniors? Harold, oh my God, he did. What a great spokesperson on this issue. He did a phenomenal job. Thank you. Member Gould, I think I passed over you somehow inadvertently.
Mine is just for comments at the end. If you want to go to legal first, then I can make my comments.
Yeah, the one thing I want to take a minute while we're here, just to mention to the board members, I had asked the superintendent about changing around our agenda so that we could have a board work session specifically on the plans the superintendent and her cabinet and her team have been looking at. What does the summer look like? What could the fall look like? What does the budget look like? All the things that I've mentioned earlier. And you all know we're doing that on the 21st. That's displaced our facilities meeting, but some of that will still be tied into it because some of the things we have to look at is what does this mean to our facilities plan? What does this potentially mean to our sales tax revenues, et cetera? So we have, as I mentioned when we had the public on the phone, we will have a lot of questions. We won't have near as many answers as anybody would like, but I know how much time and thought the superintendent and her cabinet are pouring into this. I know she keeps us all briefed individually, but I think it's extremely beneficial for us as a board to be able to talk collectively. I think it's also helpful for the public to have an opportunity to also understand all the moving parts, all that work that goes into this, and to understand why it's not as easy to have the answers as we'd all like to have. But having said that, what I think is equally important is that we have a little bit of time. We want to make sure that the superintendent knows questions that are coming up. So this is my opportunity to ask board members, if there's something that's haunting at you, something that's on your mind that you think we might not touch on, if you would please reach out and let the superintendent know so that we can make sure that's covered in the agenda and there's an opportunity to provide as much information as she and her team have. So that we can all have as productive an opportunity. So I kind of wanted to send you an email asking, but I always get nervous about how that might look. So this is my great opportunity to just say, if we're missing something that's important, let the superintendent know, let Amy know, and so we can get it on the agenda, okay? And with that, we will now move on then to General Counsel's report. Ms. Enval, you're recognized. And Pam will come back to you at the end, right? Perfect.
Thank you. Just quickly, Eileen Fernandez is working on an overhaul of, we're going to establish the policy committee again, and we have set 11 or so sets of policies that are going to go progressively through. And so she's going to be reaching out to each one of you so you can have input onto your favorite policies to put into our list. We're prioritizing based on the ones that are legislatively required. But then we have a number in the queue already. So she'll share that with you. It is a draft. It is a working document. It will be changing sometimes day to day. But we just wanted to let you know that we do have those plans and she will be shepherding us through that process.
Awesome. That's good news. Thank you very much, Amy. Dr. Jenkins, do you have a report for us? You already gave us your report. I'm so sorry. I am sorry. I don't know where I am today. Let me go back to Member Gould.
I knew you meant. I just want to put in a big plug for an event that is this Friday night. The Foundation for Orange County Public Schools will not let the show not go on, so the show must go on. And we are doing a virtual version of our Got Talent program. And it's very exciting. It's a pre-produced show that will be full of wonderful entertainment. It's going to be a groundbreaker for us doing it virtually this way. It is Friday night, May 15th from 6 to 8. There's more than 20 schools that will be represented in the show, and every school will benefit from the funds that are raised. So let's take a look at the sneak peek video that we have to show off our great talent. Issue with my sound on that, so I hope that you all heard it, but if not, hopefully we will all share that video with our communities, and I hope to see you virtually on Friday night for a great show.
I will absolutely be there. I can't wait. I'm really excited about this. I think this is a great opportunity for all of our students across the district too, So very uplifting.
Are they sending the link? Madam Chair? I'm sorry. Are they sending the link to us?
Yes, and is Deborah on the line with them? Maybe we could make sure, Deborah, if you hear this, if not, Superintendent, if you could just make sure that all the board members get the link. It's on my calendar.
Not to my school board address. Send it to my personal one.
Okay. Thank you. No, thank you. Is that it, Member Gould? Thank you. So, Member Coper, you have something to share with us tonight?
I do, Chair. So this time of year, as you know, our boardroom is normally packed with recognitions, championships, state champions of all different kinds, athletic, academic, artistic. So I have an important one I'd like to share. Make sure that my Walker Vikings get recognized. So for the first time ever, Walker Middle School has been named Odyssey of the Minds Regional Champions. If you know this community, this is just huge. And if you're not familiar with Odyssey of the Mind, it is an international problem-solving competition, and students have to use their own individual and collective talents to solve problems. They build self-confidence, life skills, whatnot. But I want you to listen to what this team accomplished in the regional competition. So not only in their school category, they were the only school to break the 300-point barrier. They were the only OCPS middle school to win gold in their category. And they didn't just win, they dominated. The next closest competitor was nearly 30 points behind. So the team, like so many other of our talented students across the district, they were supposed to advance to the state championships this April, but it was sadly canceled due to the pandemic. So I just have to give a big congratulations to those students, to their head coach, Mr. Alexander Shapiro. And I know he would say it was a team effort, but so many of the staff members helped these students, including Mr. Cos, Mr. Stiles, and Ms. Halliburton. And of course, I want to give a shout out to these students. Normally we would get to shake their hands in the boardroom. We're just going to give them a lot of love and heart this year. So congratulations to team captain, Diana Costanza, Ranferi Paris, pardon my pronunciations, guys, Clarice de Guzman, Maddie Monroy, Janetta Petit-Ferrer, Lonnie Brailsford Cologne, and Elise Salcedo Day. And congratulations, Mr. Shapiro and Principal Watson. Your hard work paid off. And I wish we could see you in person, but we are sending you our love. We're so proud of you. Thank you.
Wonderful job. Oh, wonderful job. Any other announcements before we adjourn? All right. This concludes our meeting. Meeting adjourned. Stay well. God bless. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye. Good night.
Good night. Great meeting, guys.